Welcome to Daily Drive. For Monday, June 30th, 2025, I'm Jamie Butters, Executive Editor of Automotive News in Detroit.
And I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, we're talking about trade talks. Canada called off a tech tax to jumpstart U.S. negotiations. President Trump is losing patience with Japan. And the UK enjoys a win on cars, but wants a better deal on steel. Plus, Lyft's Jeremy Bird discusses the company's cooperative and flexible approach to putting robotaxis on U.S. streets.
We want to be working with partners on the development of the tech, on the OEM side, on the ownership side, and even on the fleet management side. Like there'll be others where we work, where they're managing the fleet and putting it on marketplace, and we're very open to that.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry.
Canada rescinded its digital services tax and will resume trade negotiations with the U.S. That's according to a June 29th statement from Canada's Finance Minister, François-Philippe Champagne. The announcement came following a phone call between Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump that was just hours before the first payment under the tax was going to come due for major tech companies like Amazon and Google. Last week, on June 26, Trump announced on a social media post that he was terminating all trade discussions with Canada because of the tax. The tax was to be paid by technology companies that also include Facebook owner Meta Platforms and Apple.
President Donald Trump says time is almost up for Japan to broker a trade deal, and that he may simply dictate that the 25% tariffs on its automobiles stay put. Trump said his administration will soon start sending letters to trade partners, unilaterally assigning tariff rates. He used Japan and its linchpin auto industry as an example. Here he is on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures.
I'm going to send letters. That's the end of the trade deal. I could send one to Japan. Dear Mr. Japan, here's the story. You're going to pay a 25% tariff on your cars.
Trump was speaking ahead of the July 9th expiration on his administration's 90-day pause on the implementation of country-specific tariffs. Those are technically separate from the automotive tariffs, but a trade deal with the UK included a reduction of the auto tariffs. So other countries, including Japan, are seeking lower auto tariffs too.
Speaking of that UK deal, it starts taking effect today. As of June 30th, UK automakers can export to the U.S. under a 10% tariff, down from the 25% rate that President Trump imposed on other countries. The economic agreement between Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer also means that British aerospace companies like Rolls-Royce Holdings also saw 10% tariffs on goods, including engines and aircraft parts, slashed to zero. However, there are no signs of progress toward lowering levies on the UK's beleaguered steel industry, which remain at 25%, despite Britain previously announcing an agreement to reduce them to zero. But that's still better than the 50% taxes on steel and aluminum imported from other countries.
And concerns are starting to fade about widespread factory shutdowns caused by a shortage of rare earth magnets. The Chinese-produced magnets are beginning to flow, though automakers and suppliers say production plans still face uncertainties and a continued risk of shortages. European suppliers have received enough licenses to avoid the widespread disruptions that were predicted earlier this month. But Niels Pohl, head of market affairs at European Supplier Association CLEPA, said hundreds of permits remain pending. The rate of issuance has risen to 60% from 25%, he said. But cases where the end users are based in the United States or where products move through third countries like India are taking longer or not being prioritized. And those are today's headlines. So, Jamie, how will dropping the digital service tax impact Canada's trade negotiations with the U.S.?
Well, I guess it allows them to resume. It's interesting. The tax was announced in 2020 to address the idea that many large technology companies from the U.S. that operate in Canada might otherwise not pay any tax on what they earn in Canada. Just happened to now be coming to fruition in the middle of very complicated trade talks. Ultimately, it probably belongs in the renegotiation of the USMCA set to come up next year. So maybe kicking the can down the road allows it to everything to be negotiated together, and hopefully we get one big trade package.
Gotcha. Coming up, we'll hear about how ride-hailing company Lyft is working with May Mobility, Mobileye, and others to help launch robotaxis. That's next on Daily Drive.
Daily Drive listeners like you have access to the lowest price for Automotive News Congress 2025 on September 11th.
The event is where the industry's biggest players tackle its toughest challenges. Congress attendees don't just follow the industry, they lead it.
This year's featured speakers include Hyundai Motor Group Executive Chair Yusin Chung and General Motors CEO Mary Barra.
We are investing in America. We're creating jobs. That's creating IP in this country. And I think, the United States needs to lead in key technologies.
Join us to gain the insights and connections needed to steer your business through massive change.
To get the lowest price for the event, go to autonews.com/events, select Auto News Congress, and type in the discount code Daily Drive, one word, all caps. We'll see you in September in Detroit. Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Jamie Butters with Kellen Walker. Not long ago, ride-hailing companies Lyft and Uber were actively developing their own automated driving software in hopes of producing a step change in profitability. Then came the reckoning with the size of investment needed to achieve such a feat. Now the companies are working with tech startups, manufacturers, and others to pull together a full business case for robotaxis that draws on each partner's strengths. Jeremy Bird, Executive Vice President of Driver Experience at Lyft, spoke about the approach with our own Pete Bigelow on Shift, a podcast about mobility. Here's part of their conversation.
Kick this off. Just tell us a little bit about your role at Lyft.
Yeah, sure. I've been at Lyft for about 6 years. Started out on our policy team and then served as our chief policy officer for a number of years. And then 2 years ago, I moved over to the business side. I'm the executive vice president of driver experience and basically all supply side at Lyft. That's my team.
All right, super. On the autonomous vehicle front or autonomous driving tech front, I guess, Jeremy, it wasn't that long ago, maybe 4 years, that Lyft sold its tech division to Toyota's Woven subsidiary. Just give us some backstory here before we dive in. What was the recognition at that point, and what's kind of been the quiet and maybe not so quiet recently, work that's been going on in the meantime, leading to the current state of affairs for a ride-hailing network like Lyft in the self-driving space?
Yeah, a while ago, years ago, started L5, which was our attempt to build. We were going to build AVs, build autonomous vehicles. That's not our business. We're not an OEM, and we weren't probably best equipped to build the tech stack long term, right? Of all of the things that we need to do, focusing on the marketplace, focusing on our core business was the most important. So smartly, I think years ago, we sold that division off to Toyota, as you mentioned, with the focus on the future. Not because we thought autonomous was not going to happen. In fact, I think there was a real commitment that this is going to happen, and you see it happening today. But to really focus on our specialty, like where we actually excel, which is in the marketplace and demand generation and the connecting the customer, the rider and driver, the car and the vehicle and the rider, and then to partner with those folks who are either building the vehicle, either an OEM or some of the AV companies that are building the tech stack. And that's really where we focus our energy today.
So do you see the current structure of the robotaxi business then, that there's a software provider, a vehicle manufacturer, and then a network like Lyft? And does that include fleet management, or is that also maybe a fourth leg?
Yeah. If it was sort of walk through, I think what we think kind of the value chain is, you kind of have on the tech stack side, right? Who is actually building the technology, right? Building the AV technology. That's, a lot of providers out there, and we're working with, many of them and talking, having partner conversation with others. And then there's, who's actually building the vehicle. Sometimes that might be the same, but a lot of times it's not. And then you have who's going to own the vehicle, which may be the fleet manager, but may not be. Who's going to actually manage the fleet, who's going to make sure they're charged, cleaned, ready to go, deployed, utilized, et cetera. And then what marketplace are they going to be on, right? And essentially, like, how are you going to commercialize that asset. We see our strength from fleet management through the commercializing of the asset on the marketplace side. So we have a subsidiary called FlexDrive. We've 15,000 cars that we've been managing at 26 locations throughout North America. We're very good at fleet management, something we've perfected in not just fleet management in general, but fleet management for a transportation network company or for a marketplace. You want those vehicles to be utilized and to be commercialized. So that's a key part of the value chain for us. And then obviously the marketplace being the other key part of the value chain that we feel like we'll play in. And then we want to be working with partners on the development of the tech, on the OEM side, on the ownership side, and even on the fleet management side. Like there'll be others where we work, where they're managing the fleet and putting it on our marketplace, and we're very open to that.
So tell me more about some of those partnerships. I know May Mobility, Mobileye, maybe another one or two that I'm forgetting. Walk us through who's the current slate of partners.
Yeah, let me talk to you first just about our vision of partnership. I think that's the one thing that makes Lyft unique. When David's our new CEO, David Risher, came in, he was very focused on increasing what I think has been in our DNA since the beginning, which is to strengthen our partnership portfolio and to strengthen our focus on partnerships. You can, the old, African proverb, you can go, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think we really believe in that we want to be, and especially in the autonomous space, the partner of choice. We want to be the best partner for those folks who have AV technology to get it utilized, to get it commercialized, and to be a partner where we think about this as a win-win and ultimately a win for customers. So we launched May Mobility. That's going to launch, or we announced May Mobility, I think last year. We're going to launch our first cars in Atlanta later this summer. They're on the road testing there. It's been really fun partnership. Really impressed with their technology. Their people are great to work with. There's really only been 3 companies that have ever put commercial vehicles on the road in the United States. It's Waymo, Cruise, and May Mobility. And so we're excited to partner with them. A lot of people don't know as much about